Hey everybody, Thursday night, class 11. We are at class 11. I love turning on my streaming software and seeing chat all the way already going. So fun. Special welcome to Kyle, who says they finally caught up to join a live and been power watching the last few days. I love it. Just been like nonstop childbirth class. Like a binge. I always see this is my idea is to have a Netflix show. Wouldn't that be amazing about childbirth? Maybe not amazing. It would for me be cool. People would binge it, kind of like this. Hello to Manny. Welcome back, Manny. Hello to Brandon, Kyle, Cynthia, Tara, Natalie, Jonathan. Wow, we have, I didn't know, Jonathan, you're on the West Coast too. I was wondering if anybody else is West Coast. Who is loving these longer days? It's kind of throwing me off a little bit. And then of course we're going to spring forward this weekend. But I sort of like plan my day. I used to here in Seattle, it would get dark so early. So I would kind of start learning like, class started when the sun was at this, level. And now it's getting darker later, which we love because those long days are so great. Hello to Ashley. Hello to Killian. Welcome back, you guys. I am privileged to be able to use this awesome platform of YouTube to teach childbirth class. I just think it is the coolest thing that I have the ability, say hello, to talk to people in Michigan and Minnesota and Chicago and California, and you guys get to talk to each other. We get to talk about important topics like what we're going to cover today. We are talking about cesarean birth. Also, you might call it C-section. You might hear it called C-section. I try, sometimes I slip up and you might hear me slip up, but I try to use the term cesarean birth. I like that because a cesarean is a birth. It's just a different route, but it is a birth and should be honored as one. So I am silencing my phone. I have one of my doula buddies was calling me, and she should know I'm talking to you guys. Yay! Thank you, Jonathan. Super awesome. It's really cool. I'm glad it's working out. I'm glad that such a great crew is showing up night after night. If you are finding anything in this class is always helpful, and you can hit the like button, if you can share it or post it on it takes time, right? To post it in a forum or a message board or something about how helpful you have found it or what you have liked about the class or sharing that. It's huge. The only way that this class continues, that I can continue offering it, I offer it every 3 months. This is my second time, but planning again in June, is positive word of mouth and growth. So I'm glad you're here. Again, like always, I love questions in the chat, feedback in the chat. If you have been quiet and you haven't jumped into the chat, maybe today is the day that you're there. Hello to new faces that just jumped in. Hello, O'Neill. Hello, Tani. Hello to Tiffany and Killian, if I didn't get you. Hello to all of you guys. Welcome here. Tonight, like I said, cesarean birth. And we are also doing, I need to grab a pen. And we're also doing fears. We're going to talk about fear in labor and how to try to dispel our fears. Raise your hand out there if anyone watched the last night, our coping tool that I didn't get to, that I told you to watch the counter pressure video. Let me know if you watched that. And if you did, if I remember I was going to ask you if you had a method that you thought was going to work. Now, no points off if you haven't. It's still out there, and it's still a great video that really goes through it. Oh, hands up, hands up. I like it. I have at least 3 homeworkers. Oh, and I see a super chat. Let me get my sound effects out. They're loading. Homework. Did anyone have? Now, Kayla, you have one hand up. Does that mean you liked the one hand? The one hand massage? 2 hands, fists, and the ball. One thing that, Natalie, it's okay if you forgot. And I want to put a shout out before I get too far. Oh my, can you guys hear me okay? My microphone was all the way over here. Hello. I want to do a shout out. Thank you to Cromer's Peanuts for the super sticker. Super sticker. Thank you. That also is very helpful. Likes, shares, super stickers. I like them all. They're all awesome. Tani says definitely the fists or 2 hands. Oh, Kayla said fists best too. I need to rewatch that video. You guys let me know that I watched it. One piece of information that I don't remember if I shared or not, which is important, is the laboring person can increase pressure just by pushing back more. So the support person can always just put their fists, like if they're doing the fist counter pressure, put their fists out and then just say, lean into me for whatever amount of pressure. And the support person might need to kind of ground themselves and be ready. But that is a good way to kind of let the person that is, in labor have control over that comfort measure. So I don't remember if I shared that, but now I just shared that. Cool. Today with cesarean birth, we are going to cover a few things. I know I don't have, look at me, I have the wrong slides up. Okay, you know what? We don't need slides tonight. I didn't do a ton of slides anyway. You won't even know what you're missing. We are going to talk about 2 different types of cesarean birth. We're going to talk about planned and unplanned and kind of reasons. Why do we have those? What are the reasons for planned? What are the reasons for unplanned? And kind of diving into those. I want to talk about the true emergencies. I want to talk about what it feels like to change it up from vaginal birth to cesarean, how to make that pivot emotionally, mentally, and just the actual process of it. Remember with induction, we really went into the mechanics of it all, of, how does the Foley catheter work? How did the Pitocin work? I want to talk about that. To the prepping for a C-section, pain management, and some preferences. So if you didn't get a chance to watch the homework videos, those are down there. They're always in that same format of supportingher.com/homework on11. Also, I'm glad you guys all found it because I had it unlisted, which is a setting in YouTube and not public for a little while. So, whew. Oh, Jonathan, your question is perfect. I will explain it. And it's a little embarrassing, but I have this box with all my letters in it, right? And I think I misplaced a stack of letters because what it was going to say was, it says 1 right now. It was going to say 1 at a time. 1 at a time. It's an amazing affirmation. It is great for contractions to say to yourself 1 at a time. It is for days. If we go past our due date and we're just going out of our mind and we just are feeling so anxious, 1 at a time, 1 at a time. It's great for when we have a newborn and maybe we're up feeding the newborn. We just have to think 1 session at a time, 1 feeding at a time, 1 diaper change at a time. So that was what it was going to be. But I had a shortage of ease. And so it was going to be 1 at a time. And then I thought that was just not helpful. And so I just kind of threw it down and had to get all set up. So that's the story behind it. But 1 at a time is a great strategy. So let's talk about cesarean. If you know anybody who has had a cesarean, you might have heard the terminology of, I had an emergency cesarean, emergency C-section, emergency cesarean birth. This is, to me, one of the most common miscategorized. Let me take your comment down. miscategorized piece of information. And it is, I don't like it because I think it makes people feel like, and you guys in the chat, let me know if you see that, if you can understand this. But when I hear somebody say I had an emergency cesarean, I know what that means, an emergency. And I know it's super rare to have a true emergency cesarean. And so what the first piece of information I just want to make sure that is like a take home that you guys know is that most cesarean births are not true emergencies, meaning they are not rushing, need to get the baby out immediately, high stress, no time to think, no time to ask questions, that, you know, it's just like all of a sudden, boom, and we have to go to the operating room immediately. While that can happen, I don't want to discount the fact that that can happen. It's just not what happens most of the time. Okay. So next time you hear somebody say they had a cesarean birth, you know, take that. I mean, either you could ask them more information if you know, or wanting to, but take that a little bit with not the idea that it was this rush for the safety of baby or parent that we have to have this surgery. I mean, you might have had to have it, but it wasn't like safety, like dire. Does that make sense? Let me know in the chat if that makes sense. So let's talk about what a true emergency looks like first, and then I want to jump into this planned and unplanned. Okay. True emergency would mean they have to get the baby delivered, birthed within minutes. And so what that generally happens is that you are put to sleep, you are anesthetized, so given general anesthesia, so you are not awake for the birth. The birthing person is not awake. Usually partners are not involved. I would say all the time, if you are put to sleep, your partner is not involved. You're given general anesthesia. And there is often little time / no time for communication. It's like, this is what's going on. We've got to do this surgery right now. Let's go. And like, boom, moving the hospital bed and leaving. So that scenario doesn't happen much. What would cause that to happen would be things like placental abruption, where the placenta all of a sudden detaches and baby is not doing well. So the fetal heart rate, a lot of pain, a shooting pain usually happens with that too, like a significant non-contraction like pain. So it's usually, even if you weren't monitored, you would feel like something was wrong, something was different. So that would be like a true emergency situation. Or there's something is wrong with baby. Something is going on with baby that fetal heart rate, we don't know. It can't be fixed. Try different positions, try different things, and baby needs to be born, and then if there's any kind of issue with mom, like preeclampsia with a seizure or something like that, that's not treated. So I got a comment on one of my videos today about this one like rarer thing that I didn't explain in a video. And I was like, oh, I wish I could like explain every single possible scenario, and I can't. So I am going to miss some things, but that's generally what happens. Yes. Okay. So planned cesarean is usually for a few reasons. One, placenta previa, which if you are in this class right now and pregnant, you probably already know the status of your placenta. This is when the placenta covers the cervix. So the placenta attaches inside the uterus, and this is our cervix all the way open. If our placenta was attached right above our cervix, the placenta would be blocking the exit. Because remember our door, does that feel like forever ago, you guys? Our door with our lock and our 4 things on there, or does it seem like yesterday? So our exit, our door, I need some chat. I need you guys to let me know. If the placenta is blocking the exit, baby can't be born. So that is a true placenta previa is a reason for a planned scheduled cesarean. Other medical complications like one-offs sometimes do, if like heart issue, there are, different one-off things. And I'll read that in just a second. And breech, we talked about baby's position when we talked about the baby. A lot of times a breech baby is a scheduled cesarean. Some people do choose to go into labor for a breech because they want the baby to choose their due date. That is more rare, though possibility. Yes. I like that. It feels like forever ago and both simultaneously. That's how this year has been. That's how that 2020 was. I was just having this conversation. It was long and short at the same time. They're both the same things. Crazy. The other planned cesarean sometimes we see with multiples. Okay, so twins, not necessarily a given, but can be. And then there are some people that choose to do a planned cesarean for whatever reason, choice. I actually have a great resource. I forgot to put in the, I'm going to get that link out tomorrow. There was a podcast from an OB, all about birth, Dr. Nicole Rankins. She does a great podcast, and she did a podcast from her perspective as the surgeon, the OB surgeon, and she talked about how a planned cesarean works. And if it's excellent if you're a person that just craves knowledge and wants to be more prepared. If you're someone who cannot get enough, like just wants all the information, it's a great podcast. It really goes into details. Yeah. Okay. So unplanned would be you're working towards a vaginal birth and then something happens for a reason and we change to a cesarean birth. So here are 5 kind of ones that we would do, that you would hear about. The first one is called failure to progress. So what that means is your cervix is just not dilating. The exit is not opening for whatever reason. Those locks are just not working. And usually the cervix is just, no matter what, not opening to allow the baby to come down. So failure to progress is one. And this is usually after Pitocin is tried. So say you went to labor naturally, your body's not progressing, then they would add Pitocin. And generally, when you see a failure to progress diagnosis, it is truly like we've given tons of time. It should feel like we have lots and lots of time. This is not a rush, because in this case, their baby, cervix isn't opening or baby's not coming down, but it's not like, we're in a rush. So that always is a time to ask questions, ask if you've done enough, ask if there's anything we haven't thought about. Can we change positions? Can we add more Pitocin? Can we get an epidural? You can try all the things. Failure to progress. And that sometimes is the result of an induction as well, where an induction sometimes can be categorized as failed induction. Sometimes it can be categorized as failure to progress. Okay. The second one is fetal distress. So baby is not tolerating labor. So it can happen with just oxytocin, no medical intervention can happen. It can happen with Pitocin when Pitocin is given. So there are lots of scenarios and sometimes we just don't know, but baby is not tolerating labor. We're seeing it when we're doing the fetal monitor. And, you guys remember when I was talking about the fetal scalp electrode, right? That is that little screw that goes into the first couple layers of skin on baby's scalp. If there is a worry about fetal distress, that is generally something that they suggest that they get the fetal scalp electrode to really verify it. Like, is what they're seeing actually what they're seeing before they proceed with a cesarean? Now, if your mind is thinking like, well, you know, what's the difference? If baby's in distress, is it not a true emergency? So usually a fetal distress situation is like, we need to go, but we don't need to run. It depends on the situation, but often it's like baby's not tolerating contractions. If it's induced, we turn the Pitocin down. Then we have a conversation about going to cesarean. If it's not induced, we have a quicker conversation about going to cesarean. So if that's on your mind, let's see. Questions. Seems like a lot of people still don't know about VBAC. Yeah, VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean, is really dependent upon hospital and provider on who supports it and the how risky it is or not. Yeah. This is a good question, Rachel. Is there a maximum time recommended to progress for failure to progress situation before C-section? So there's not a recommended time because all situations are a little bit different. But I would say, just as a doula in my work, that families, if baby is tolerating labor, if baby is like chill, happy, cool in there, then families should take as much time with questions and trying different things as they can. I mean, as they want, not can. Scratch that, not can. They desire. So if you should never feel like a failure to progress, you have to be rushed. And I have seen this. I've seen it with like timing of maybe a doctor is going off call and they say, you know, this looks like failure to progress. We recommend a cesarean, blah, blah, blah. And if that doesn't feel comfortable to you, or you don't have your questions answered, you're not participating in that decision-making, and baby's great, then you should be allowed more time. So as much time as it takes for you to feel comfortable with the decision, or that you have tried what you want to try, as long as baby's doing okay. Which, speaking of, it reminds me of the decision-making workshop that we are going to talk about, that I started, which this scenario and working through it and role-playing it is totally going to be something we work on in that informed consent decision-making workshop. So that's a great question. And I will, let me just put the banner on it if anybody wants to join. Okay, while I'm talking. Okay, and I'll take that down in a second. CPD is our next one, which it kind of sort of goes with failure to progress. And what that is it's called cephalopelvic disproportion. And let me grab my pelvis. So that's not actually diagnosed a lot of times until after the baby is born, but what it means is that the baby's head is in disproportion to the pelvis. And sometimes we would classify that if the cervix is open, if the exit is open, but the baby's station is not changing. We're not seeing the baby able to enter the pelvis, then that could be, that would be the diagnosis, but not necessarily like that baby's still fine in there. There could be a sudden complication, so which would be an unplanned. And that would go into that emergency, true emergencies. So a placental abruption, I mentioned that. Another one, very rare, is a cord prolapse. So that would be if the cord, when the water breaks, if the cord came down first before baby's head, and that prevents the baby. This is a really bad demo. Oh my gosh, Alice. If the cord comes out first, so cervix, baby's head, that is a serious, like, emergency room unplanned or planned, not unplanned, true emergency unplanned cesarean. Very rare. More rare in premature babies, where the water breaks unexpectedly, but not very, again, very rare. Okay. So is it starting to make sense? Like, is anybody in the chat, or you guys watching, do you know anybody who had a cesarean birth and you're starting to think like, oh, that was probably the reason, or I heard that was the reason, or I'm not sure? Or I'd love to hear, is there a reason that a friend or family member or someone gave you that I didn't talk about at all for reasons to have a cesarean birth? Let me know, because I want to hear what the stories are out there that you know. Let's talk about, I want to really focus on the unplanned cesarean, because I feel like most people that attend childbirth class are generally looking for a vaginal birth, thinking that they're going to have a vaginal birth. And so it's the unplannedness of it that we want to know about and be prepared about, right? So the first thing that I want to acknowledge is that what needs to happen, but is hard, is having to pivot, both emotionally and mentally. And sometimes when we are told and have a decision about a cesarean, hopefully a shared decision about cesarean, a lot of times we have to grieve. We have to have a small time to grieve. Not everyone, but a lot of us need to spend time grieving kind of the loss of what we thought birth was going to look like, or the loss of the healing process that we thought we were going to be on, the journey of parenting that we thought we were going to be on. And it's a lot of sort of emotional, it's a lot of emotions to have to process. So partners, this is where it being a strong support person is great, though also hard, because you're probably processing your own feelings and thoughts too. So I always say that if it's not a true emergency, if we're not rushing out, always ask for a few minutes to regroup. Just say, I agree. It sounds like the cesarean birth is the way to go. Can we have, 10 minutes, 15 minutes just to regroup? Maybe you need to call a family member. Maybe you need to have a moment of prayer. What is it that would make you be able to kind of pivot? And my hope for most people, not most people, my hope for all people who have to pivot from a vaginal birth to a cesarean birth is I really want after you have time to kind of process a little bit and do a little bit of grieving, to start working towards celebrating and getting excited, because you, in this surgery, you are going to have a birth and you are going to have a baby. And it's partners that are able to kind of help gently guide people in that direction, guide their partner in that direction, or doulas that can do that. It's so helpful to start processing kind of the birth, to start, walking in strong, going into the cesarean birth, like strong, like I did everything I could. We labored, we did it. And now we're doing this other path and we are ready. And just like, we got this. And when I work as a doula with clients that have this situation, my hope for them is to at least start feeling like my body did an amazing job, and we are just taking a different route. And that is what we're doing. One breath at a time. So it's still a time that people need strength. They need support. They need to still be validated that they're doing a great job, because they are. I get really excited and passionate about that, because I don't want anyone to feel that. And I know it does happen. People feel like a failure or feel like we didn't try everything or we should have asked different questions or whatever. I don't ever want anyone to feel that. I want them to feel confident in decisions and in the situation. Okay, I'm going back up a little bit. Okay, Natalie said pelvis. Okay, pelvis issue. Niece was stuck on the pelvic bone. Yep. Wife's sister, failure to progress because the baby was not coming down. Her cousin's baby heart couldn't handle the contractions. Fetal distress. Yeah. Okay. So you guys are hearing some of these stories. Definitely. My friend was bleeding excessively from the cervix. That is more rare, but she must have had a cervical tear or something. Very rare. But things happen. We had a friend that had a true emergency C-section a few years ago. Baby's heart rate was substantially decreasing every time she pushed. Baby was stuck in the middle of her pelvis. Okay. Yeah. So she probably had general anesthesia if she had a true emergency cesarean, which is hard. It's hard. Anissa said, can cord prolapse be solved by pushing the cord inside and changing positions to push the baby high in the pelvis? So Anissa, that's actually what they do until they can have a cesarean, but it can't be solved. It's solved to make sure baby is okay. They actually push the cord back in, but it's a lot of times a nurse will push the cord back in and keep her hand actually inside the vagina until you get to the operating room. It's that serious. It's not something that, then you could go labor, but it's rare. That is very rare. Natalie T, good question. Is there still vaginal bleeding with recovery when having a cesarean birth? Yes, actually there is. So some people report that there is less, but that's still, the uterus is still bleeding from, the vaginal bleeding is from the spot, the site of where the placenta was attached to the uterus. So that's an open wound that's where the blood loss is coming from. And the uterus clamps down. It goes from this big watermelon size down to like a little orange size, which helps stop that bleeding or slow it. And then you still have the postpartum bleeding afterwards. So some people say it's less, but I've also talked to people who have more, which we're going to talk about postpartum bleeding on, is that night 13? I think that's Saturday night. Postpartum preparation, Saturday night. Yes. Okay. Good questions, you guys. Keep them coming. This scene change. Can you guys kind of picture this, how it might be difficult to sort of reroute your mind and your emotions? Let me know if that's making sense, if you can see how that just regrouping, asking for 5 minutes, 10 minutes alone. You also might need to have time to formulate your questions so that you feel like you're satisfied with that decision-making process. Always is important. Let's shift gears to sort of the nuts and bolts of how things work. Once a cesarean birth has been called, is what they call it, or decided upon, suggested, if it is not a true emergency, if it is something that, needs to be happen pretty fast, once that decision has been made, a lot of times we have another one of these types of scene changes, like where our peaceful hospital room becomes filled with people doing things. And I think, even though I've experienced it many times in my doula career where people have had to go for a C-section, and I still feel like it's a little tough to handle because it's like the C-section machine comes in, where a lot of times and it depends on the hospital, it depends on the situation, but sometimes it's like someone's coming in and giving you by Citra, a stomach acid calming agent that you have to shoot like a alcohol shot. Someone else is shaving your bikini line, even if you have no hair, they still do it just because. You might have to get a catheter if you don't have one yet. If you didn't have an IV, you would need an IV port put in. And then they're giving you a hairnet to put on. They're asking a lot of information. You're probably taking off your bra if you have a bra on. There's like a kind of like a whirlwind of stuff. The anesthesiologist comes in, asks you if you have any questions, what's going to happen in the surgery, giving you information. And it's a lot. At one hospital that I attended a lot of births at, I never figured out why, and I asked several times. They had a policy of decision to incision. So from the decision that a cesarean is going to be done to the first incision, so the first cut, incision. So a cesarean incision is very low, right at the bikini line. They tried to do that in 30 minutes. And I always ask, like, why? Why do we have to do this rush? And I'm not sure. I'm sure it had I think it had to do with hospital logistics and that kind of thing. But man, for the people experiencing it, it was quite a lot to process. So at any time, if you need to have a moment, hey, can we have a moment? Or can you explain what this is? Or, I felt rushed with the anesthesiologist. Can they come back in? Don't hesitate to still advocate for yourself and make sure you get all those questions. I put on here with the takeoff bra, I put on here 2 things that I've seen people do before they kind of make that decision. And this might sound silly, but I share all the stuff, guys. And I've seen clients do it and they feel so much better. And it depends on the person, right? But I've had people brush their teeth. So they bring, their partner brings a little basin so you can kind of brush your teeth, spit in the basin, brush their teeth, brush their hair. And I've had clients put on some makeup. And if any of those tasks like that make you feel better, make you feel refreshed, help you pivot your mind, any of that, absolutely do it. I want, and I reviewed or did a doula reaction video a few times back of a YouTuber, mental health mom, and she was full on in labor doing her hair, doing her makeup. And she was like, I don't care, makes me feel better. And I'm just all for that. If that makes you feel better, do it. Whatever it is, if it's brushing your teeth and putting on some new lip balm or something, brushing your hair before you go off to surgery, that is going to make you feel better. Do it. Kyle, no need to panic yet. The videos are going to be up through all of March. Yep. So, and then just a quick note, since Kyle's question, if you guys didn't see it, how many days are the videos going to be up? So you can rewatch them closer to the due date. Yeah, that would be great. They're going to be up through the end of March. And then I take them all, I put them in a course, and then I offer them for $19 usually, so that some people want to watch them without ads. And so that is the next step for them. And then I will have another class starting in June, and I just redo this and meet new people, which is awesome. And some people from December are coming back here, which is cool. Okay. Who can relate to this idea of brushing your teeth and brushing your hair and putting on makeup to make you feel better, or any of those steps? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. And I'm taking a quick sip, and we're at 38 minutes. Okay. Okay. I want you to think about it. It can sometimes feel like an emergency, even when it's not an emergency, because of this whirlwind of people. But I think of it more as a well-oiled machine, that they are just, the nurses and care providers are so good at their jobs. And it's sort of like a checklist of things they have to do, that just think of it that way. It's they're working efficiently because they're like a well-oiled machine. Okay, drink your water if you haven't yet. Also, as the temperature changes, you guys, it's not quite changing here, but as it will warm up in the spring and the summer, sometimes people forget to step up their liquids, their fluid intake, and can get dehydrated. So make sure that you're still drinking. And I've seen so many people over Memorial Day weekend. I know that's a little ways off. Get dehydrated because they're outside for longer, it's warmer, and they're not drinking enough. So dehydration can cause early labor, can cause contractions, so stay hydrated. Okay, thank you, Jonathan. And Jonathan's wife can understand the concept of getting ready for the C-section. Great, great, cool. I love, it does help me if I get a couple of people that connect. Great, okay, let me see what else is going on at this time. This depends on the birth location. I've seen it both ways. I've seen it in Atlanta and seen it in Seattle here, that sometimes partners enter the surgery into the operating room with their partner. So both together as a team. That is how I've seen it done here in Seattle a lot. In Atlanta, partners were actually had to stay in the labor and delivery room up until the surgery, the first incision was about to start. Then they would bring the partner in and sit them down next to the operating room table. So that kind of depends. I'm going to give another plug to the partners for going to the bathroom, getting a sip of water, getting some kind of snack if you can, or if you're somebody who feels queasy or worried about being in an operating room, obviously don't get a snack. Maybe eat a peppermint or something that helps with nausea. Do you guys know that peppermint gum or peppermints can help with nausea? But bathroom trip. The last thing you need is to be in the surgery, in the OR, and have to feel like you have to got to go to the bathroom. No, not okay. Yeah. Okay. So, yes, the anesthesia in the layout of the operating room, right behind the birthing person is the anesthesiologist. The anesthesiologist is going to be your go-to if you have a question, not feeling good, need someone. So partners, when you're sitting next to your partner's head, the person that's sitting right behind them with the machines, they're your go-to. So to absolutely get that person attention, that's going to be your main person. What coping techniques do we have when we are stressed, when we're anxious, when we're feeling a lot of pressure in the surgery, we're hearing things? We've got a few pretty key coping mechanisms. One, we still have our breath. Now, we might not feel like we have to get such a big breath, but we can have a breath. So partners, breathing alongside your partner in labor, great. We can do our visualizations if those visualizations are working for us. And then what I have seen helps so well. Yes, Tiffany, breathing. What I have seen is so helpful is when support person is talking to their partner during the surgery. I don't know how, and I've actually sat alongside a partner before. Sometimes they let doulas support in the operating room. And one thing I've heard a couple times, and I actually saw it on a few birth vlog videos too, is person giving birth says, just talk to me. Just talk to me. Can you guys relate to this? I totally can. I have this fear of bridges. I also don't like tunnels. I don't know why. Why do I live in Seattle? I don't know. But I had to drive through a tunnel the other day, and I had my son in the front seat, my teenage son. And I was like, yeah, can you just talk to me? Can you just tell me something? It's like we need our mind to not be thinking and starting to go down that anxiety rabbit hole, right? We just need, just tell me anything. So good things to talk about is things you can't wait to do with the baby. What are you looking forward to? What is the baby? Oh, I can't wait to see does the baby have any hair? What do you I can't wait to see its little fingernails. I can't wait to just be rocking in that glider that we have. Can't wait to introduce them to grandparents. any kind of thing. Just, I don't even care if you're talking about your favorite soup and bread place that you go to. Like, you just got to say stuff. Like, just start talking. And, obviously, if the person giving birth doesn't want to hear you talk, can say, that's okay. But I will tell you that most people prefer to hear talking to distract them, or just to get their mind off of what's going on. Yes. Thank you, Catherine. You know this too. Oh, Tara, thank you. I trying to be encouraging. Mercedes, I don't know about California. And California is so huge. I bet you see everything there. So I'm not sure how they do cesarean and the partner and when. So if you're transitioning from a vaginal birth to a cesarean birth, you still have coping options. You still have support. You're still strong. You're still in it. You're still waiting for this finale of, holding your baby. That's totally still in your future. You might have some options for a cesarean. And I say might because, man, this varies. This is so variable. And if you saw the video in the homework about family-centered cesarean, that's what they're taught. That's the terminology that we're hearing a lot, where they are offering a few different options for cesarean birth that gives you more preferences, that if you have preferences. And one of the big ones is skin to skin in the OR. So in the past, not even that far past, and still happens in a lot of hospitals, babies are born, right, delivered during surgery. They are usually sort of, why aren't I holding my baby? The baby is born. A lot of times they are shown to parents kind of over a sheet, a drape, and then they're given to the healthcare professionals that go over on the side of the room and assess baby, wipe baby, make sure baby's doing okay. What used to traditionally be done is swaddled up, brought back to family. And a lot of times partners can just kind of hold the baby right here next to your face. If you're the birthing person, where you can kind of kiss baby's head, maybe you can kind of hold baby, maybe partner is just holding baby and you can see the baby that way. That was the traditional way, and the way a lot of places still do it. If a hospital is allowing for more of a family-centered cesarean, you might have the option of either baby born and then brought over the drape and then put right on the chest. Generally, that requires another set of hands to hold the baby on, like a nurse will help with the partner doing that. So, and then they're assessing the baby right there. And if they needed to, they would bring the baby over, or baby born to the warmer. Baby looks good. Do you want the baby on your chest, skin to skin? Yes, I do. Then put on. Okay. Similarly, some places are allowing baby to try to breastfeed or work on breastfeeding. Another arm is definitely needed because person that gave birth really can't do much but just sort of watch. So someone else would help baby latch if that's a preference and the ability. Some babies are showing signs they're ready to breastfeed early, and some aren't. Another option might be to have your doula, if you have a doula, come into the OR with you. I think if you have a birth doula, they should absolutely be allowed in. Birth doulas are watching the partner to make sure they're okay, are giving tips to, hold this, say this, don't forget. I was holding the emesis bag to get the vomit the other day. I mean, it's helpful to have another person in there. And the final thing, some people feel like, no way, I wouldn't want this. So I'm just saying that it's an option. And that is that the drape is clear, that if you're, the birthing person laying down, that you have, instead of a solid, like blue drape, that it's clear. So you can see a little bit more of what's going on. And I've heard mixed about this. what is so crazy, the last two, or recently, I don't even know when, I attended a birth recently, and by recently, I mean in the last like 3 years, that they were using a drape that had this little clear window that you could pull up, and which I'm sure, you know, was like intended to give the family the ability to either pull it up and there was a clear, or keep it down. And the anesthesiologist walked over and was like straightening so that it was covering it. And he said, I don't know why they have that there, and just like covered it. And I said to my clients, like, did you guys want to see? Because we can open it, you know, but he was just like, I don't know why they want that there. It's crazy. So those are some of the, you might hear them called gentle cesareans or family-centered cesareans. So after a cesarean birth, you will recover either in a recovery room, which is often a group situation in North America, not always, but sometimes, or you recover back in your labor and delivery room. And that really depends on the hospital. So yeah, that is sort of how it goes. Yeah, Kyle, that's a great question. Actually, when I was talking about that, I was going to say, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow in class number 12 when we're talking about the baby. But so we will talk about it tomorrow. But some of the early signs are if their cheek is touched, they turn. If they're sticking their tongue out, pointing their tongue out, that's a big sign. And if they're just like opening their mouth a lot, they're like a baby bird if they're touched. So those are some great signs. The tongue sticking out is a big one. But you guys will be here tomorrow night, I hope, and we'll talk more about those first moments with baby. We'll talk about placenta and the cord too. Okay, let me know, did I miss anything? I am going to move on to fear, tension, pain, dispelling fears. But I don't want to move too far unless we have any lingering C-section questions. What I want to know from you guys is, between the start of this class at 8:30 or 5:30, wherever you are, whatever your time zone, and now, do you feel like you know more about it? Do you feel like it's kind of making sense in your head? Cesarean. Now, if you are feeling like, I don't know about that decision making and situation, I definitely suggest that you join that workshop, because I think that's going to be amazing, because the more you talk through some of these decisions and scenarios, informed consent, the better. So just give me a quick yes, no, little better, little worse. Where are we now compared to where we started this talk? I always want to get a quick check-in on when I cover cesarean, because I know I've had people, and you guys are not it. When I first taught this last class in December, the last time in December, I was really worried people were going to skip my cesarean class because they thought that they're not going to have a cesarean. So, and they didn't, and you guys didn't either, which is excellent. But I have had people in my in-person class, if they're going to miss a night, they miss the cesarean night. And I'm like, no, I want to make sure that you're there. Okay, good. We got some goods, some betters. Great. Thank you. Better. Okay, so coping mechanisms. The coping mechanism I want to talk about today is dispelling fears. There are, I think, 3 ways, and I didn't just come up with this. There are 3 big ways that we can get through our fears. And if you're thinking like, I don't know, do I have any fears in childbirth? I'm going to give you some examples that I've seen. There's some people have a fear of the medicalness of birth, a fear of, say, needles, a fear of just being in a hospital setting, especially if you've ever had a negative experience at a hospital, either with yourself or a loved one who is going through some kind of treatment or significant illness in a hospital. I've seen a lot of people who experience this as children. who have a hard time thinking about going there for a positive, like as a child, they had a parent that was in the hospital or something like that. So just general fear, anxiety around all the hospitalness stuff. And then I have one of what I've seen, one of the most common fears. I don't need to laugh about fears, but Killian, that was funny. My husband said, fear of babies? Okay. Is this baby, Killian's husband, are you afraid because of this baby? It is a little scary. I will admit that this baby is a little bit scary looking. Yours will be so much cuter, but that is so awesome. So fear, one of the most common fears that I've seen is like fear of one provider. That's so common. Oh my gosh, like there's 5 providers in the practice and one of them you're afraid to have. If that is your case, that is a common fear I have. Okay, so I'm going to talk through some of these examples using those fears. So yeah, Jonathan, oh, fear of hospitals, needles, blood. Yeah, those are all, we got some laughs from fear of babies. I love it. Yeah. Oh, good. Glad you're here, Graceful One. Oh, watching from laboring room at the hospital. Yay. Oh my gosh. That's on my bingo card. Last time we had another family that watched from the hospital. So let's all send Graceful One some positive laboring messages, possible laboring messages. Yes. Graceful One, you have got this. You've got this. Whatever path your birth takes, you've got this. That's so cool. Very cool. Okay. So how to reduce fears. Kyle, you mentioned it. We've got 3 kind of big ones that we can do. Education, huge, right? Talking about them, having strategies and plans and like just not hiding them. Because sometimes when we talk about them, it's like, oh, this isn't as big as it seems. And creating a plan. So education, you guys are all doing that right now. I love it. Also, I love all these good lucks in the chat. That's like so much good vibe energy. So good. That's so cool. You've got like 38 other doulas that are sending you some positive energy. That's so cool. Like supportive families. That's so cool. Okay, so fear. The thing about fear, we want to start kind of reducing it and dispelling it because of this thing that we call the fear, tension, pain cycle. And if I had my slides up, you would see this very basic cycle, but you guys have good imagination, so I can talk you through it. Basically, fear leads to tension. Tension leads to pain. Pain can cause more fear. So in this cycle, we can reduce all 3 of these. So I want you to think about, it's not just reducing fear, you can reduce tension, and your tension can reduce your pain, and your pain can reduce your fear. So think about what are some ways to reduce tension. We've learned these in our comfort class on our coping techniques, and that is one of the reasons day 1, guys, I start with this because I feel like if you can master this one coping technique, what is it? Let me know in the chat. If you can master it that I taught on day 1, then it's so powerful. It helps you open, release. It helps reduce pain. And then reducing pain reduces fear, reduces tension. And what is it, people? Right? We all know. Limp and loose. If you can master and check for and look for limp and loose, this is going to help all of these. You think about if you're afraid of something, you're tense, right? Like, oh, here comes the needle. Here comes the needle. Right? Thank you. Yay, limp and loose, limp and loose. Killian, Rebecca, Natalie, I love it. So limp and loose. So I want you to be thinking about that. So let's think about now, if we had a needle phobia, there are some plans that we can make. Are we better off if someone talks to us when we get the IV? Are we better off if we don't look? Are we better off if we tell the nurse? Maybe we know that once we get the IV, we don't want to see anything. The needle doesn't stay in, but we don't want to see it. So ask for a little cover. How can we cover it? So we can create some good plans. If we have, and when anytime you're getting a needle that has to, enter your body, before it starts, work on, like, tell the nurse, can I just have 5 minutes just to work, put some music on, work on my looseness, ragdoll, limp and loose. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, Tiffany, I love this. I practice that before my insulin shots every night. Limp and loose, deep breaths absolutely help. Thank you, Tiffany. I love when people make my point. I love when people have real stories. Good work, Tiffany. That is so good. You are so strong for having to do those too. And just one. You just have to take it one day at a time, one shot at a time, right? You can get through it. Yes. Fear of one provider. That's where we're going to use some mindset stuff. I want anyone who has the fear of, oh, don't let it be Dr. So-and-so. My preference is just figure it's going to be Dr. So-and-so. It's going to be. That way you're not setting yourself up. If it's somebody else, it's great. If it's not, you've already visualized that it's that person and it's not going to throw you. That technique is so much better than just fingers crossed and hoping that it's not the person you don't like. I mean, if you have time to change providers, I absolutely suggest that you do that. If you don't, if you have time to change practices, if you have a lot of fear around the person that's taking care of your baby, that's going to be, taking care of you in labor, you might have the ability, not everybody does, depending upon resources, healthcare options, whatever, you might have the ability to change. But I'd rather people think it's going to be that person. So, dispelling fear. Let's work on it. Let's talk about it. A homework that I suggest, first of all, I would watch that fear, tension, pain video that's in the homework, but, see if there's any fears. If support person, doing kind of an interview about fears is really good because partners can have fears too that are very valid. Okay. So those should not be discounted either. So, okay. Tonight we did cesarean birth. We did removing fears. Hopefully you guys are feeling better in both of those. As always, I am doing a practice after the class. If you haven't joined me for the practice, I do highly recommend it. And you can always join at any time and watch any of the back practices. So I go through the practice techniques and you just join the channel. It's $2.99. And what else? Oh, and it's after the class. And then the workshop link, I'll keep that up. And thank you. First of all, thoughts to Graceful One. Please come back and let us know. We are going to be here tomorrow talking about baby. So we're going to talk about placenta, cord, early breastfeeding cues, what all of your preference, advocating for your baby, that kind of thing, all. And we're going to talk about some easy massage techniques and massage in labor. So we've got Friday night, baby time. They're not scary, no matter what Killian's husband, was it Killian? Husband said about being afraid of babies, fear of babies. I can't find it. Yes, it was. It's going to be a great class. And thanks again for the opportunity to spend an hour talking about this topic with you and just helping or allowing me to be part of your story. So I hope you guys have a great night. I hope to see you back here tomorrow, Friday night. We've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's going to be great. Every class something new, another coping technique, another tool, and have a great night. Thanks, guys. Bye.